This meeting is being recorded.
We will wait for 2 more minutes for everyone to join. Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to our webinar on building your career in the UK. I'm Akshata Ramesh, your moderator for today's session. This event is specially designed for Kannada students in the UK to help you navigate the job market and career opportunities effectively. ಈ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ನ ಶುರು ಮಾಡುವ ಮುಂಚೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಯುಗಾದಿ ಹಬ್ಬದ ಶುಭಾಶಯಗಳು. ಯುಗಾದಿ ಕಳೆದರೂ ಯುಗಾದಿ ಮರಳಿ ಬರುತ್ತಿದೆ. ಹೊಸ ವರುಷದ ಹೊಸ ಹರುಷವ ಹೊಸತು ತರುತ್ತಿದೆ. Yugadi is all about new beginnings, isn't it? And just like the festival, let's use this webinar as a fresh start, a chance to explore new possibilities and build a successful future in the UK. We have an insightful session ahead, so take notes, feel free to engage through the chat. Before we begin, just a few quick pointers. To ensure a smooth session, we will be muting all participants. If you have any questions during the session, please drop them in the chat. We'll try our best to answer as many as possible towards the end of the session. Also, this session is being recorded, so if you miss anything, do not worry. You'll have a chance to revisit it later. With that, let's get started.
Akshata, shall I come in?
Yes.
Thank you. So, my name is Dr. Mehul. I'm an assistant professor. Yes.
Akshata will call out you.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Coventry Kannadigaru is a thriving Kannada-speaking community right here in Coventry. We started as a small group post-pandemic and have now grown into a strong network of nearly 500 members. At Coventry Kannadigaru, we believe in staying connected, supporting each other, and celebrating our shared culture while adapting to life in the UK. Whether you're a student, professional, or family, this is your space to belong and grow. Moving beyond Coventry, Midlands Kannadigaru UK serves as a broader network for Kannada-speaking individuals across the Midlands. This group brings people together to share information, support each other, and celebrate Kannada traditions through events, discussions, and collaborations. It's all about strengthening our Kannada identity while embracing new opportunities in the UK. Karunāḍina Anivāsi Hindūgaḻa Okkooṭa is dedicated to preserving and promoting Hindu culture within the Kannada-speaking community. More than just a cultural organization, this community encourages its members to embrace dharma, respect all traditions, and foster harmony in society while staying rooted in Kannada heritage. For students, Indian National Students Association serves as a home away from home. Adjusting to life in the UK can be overwhelming, but through mentorship, networking, and cultural programs, INSA ensures that Indian students feel supported, connected, and empowered for success both academically and professionally. INSA is the largest student body network in the UK, being connected with 55 universities. Now, I request Dr. Mehul Chatabar, who is an assistant professor in accounting at Coventry University, to share a few words and to introduce our key speaker for today.
Thank you, Akshata. So, my name is Dr. Mehul. I'm an assistant professor in accounting at Coventry University. I've been working in Coventry University since past 5 years. It is my pleasure to introduce esteemed speaker for today's career session, Amit Ganatra. He is an early career consultant working at Coventry University within the College of Business and Law. But his wings are not only related to CBL. Sometimes he work outside as well, where he has dedicated over 3 years to supporting students in their career development overall. Some background about him. Before transitioning into the education sector, Amit has more than a decade of experience in banking and financial services, which brings him to an extensive background which has helped him to equipped with invaluable insight into the career transitions, and especially the complexity while navigating the job market, and especially in the present situation where participants are looking for some sort of guidance, and Amit is an apt choice for us to share his experience. At Coventry University, Amit is specializing in helping students securing placement, internships, and graduate roles. He provides tailored employability coaching through one-on-one appointment, workshops, and presentations as well, With his wealth of experience across various industries, Amit offers a practical, no-nonsense approach to career advice that is both effective and empowering. Please join me in welcoming Amit. Amit, over to you.
Thank you, Mehul. Thank you very much. Can I just check, first of all, that you can hear me okay?
Yeah, okay. All good.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, great stuff. Thank you very much. So thank you for the introduction. I think the only thing to add from me is I don't pretend or profess to be an expert in all industries or all areas. That is almost impossible for anyone in this kind of role to do. But I am an expert in all things employability and career. So whilst I might not be able to support everyone with questions, maybe if they're very industry specific, I will be able to answer any question that relates to careers and employability more in general. My background really is banking and finance. I did that for about 10 years. I think the reason I moved industry, and I think it will be relevant when we come to some of the topics today, is because I didn't enjoy it. I was very much a case for me that if I'm not enjoying what I do on a daily basis, why am I going to work? So I took a little bit of time out to understand what I'm good at, what I enjoyed. And I kind of fell into careers and employability, and I quickly realized this was the industry for me because it meant that I was able to help people. And I think that's the most important thing to me when I go to work, is I have to feel like I am helping somebody in some way. Been doing the role now for about 3.5 years, helped a lot of students, both UK students and international students, into employment. So I've got a good idea of kind of what works and what doesn't work. Okay, thank you. So I am going to cover lots of different areas on careers and employability today. And I think arguably the most important is to understand the UK job market. It's very different to the Indian job market. And I think the main difference is the education isn't as valued when you are job searching as it probably is in India. I've heard many students say to me in my time at the university, that they're here to do their MBA in the UK, and the plan then is to return back home because that MBA almost guarantees an increase in salary or a higher job position than they would have had without that level of education. That isn't really the case within the UK. The education that you do and you guys predominantly will come here to do is for your own benefit. It's for your own knowledge, your own understanding. And yes, an employer will like to see and like to understand what education level you have. It won't guarantee you a job role like it might do in another country outside of the UK. So it's really important to understand that, because it is arguably the biggest learning for students that I speak to, that realization actually that just because you've got the degree, you've got the first class undergraduate degree, the master's, it doesn't guarantee you a job in the UK. So I think the most important thing that is to understand. But that isn't to say that there aren't jobs out there for international students. The thing that you will need to understand, however, is, and this is a little bit late when you arrive to be having these kind of conversations, because ideally, I would like to see in the real world careers being discussed before you make the decisions about your university experience and where you're going to go and what you're going to study. Because when you arrive in the UK and you've studied one of our broader degrees, and I'm going to use international business management as an example, because it's a degree that I deal with quite a lot. It's a very broad degree. So it gives you a lot of areas where you understand sectors, but you don't necessarily specialize in anything. And for those students, yes, they've studied that degree because maybe they weren't sure what they wanted to do. But because you don't specialize in an area, sometimes the knowledge of what can I do or what do I want to do becomes a little bit more skewed than it would do if you had studied a more specific degree. If you'd have studied accounting, the chances are you're going to do some kind of accountancy. You study marketing, you're likely to do some kind of marketing. When you study those broader degrees, it's a little bit more difficult to understand what can I do, what do I want to do, and if you delay that learning, the chances are you're going to miss out on things during your time in the UK that you could and should have been doing to increase not only your knowledge and skills, but your level of experience in your desired industry. So most important thing is to understand not even what the job market is like, is what is it do you actually you want to do. So that's the key thing that you need to understand. Touched on a little bit about point number 2, about the differences between the UK and the international market. And then we'll touch on very briefly here, because I'm going to cover that a little bit later on, sponsorship. I speak to a lot of students that are looking to gain sponsorship within a certain field or a certain job role without understanding, is there actually a demand for that skill set in that industry? If I take finance, for example, quite a broad industry, but I don't think the UK struggles when it comes to finding or recruiting people within finance. So if that's an area maybe that you wanted to pursue, that's fine, but you need to understand, is there actually a demand there? And that's just an example, because it comes up a lot with students saying to me, I want a job that offers me sponsorship. And when I question that, what kind of job or what industry, I hear things like any industry. So if you've got the mindset of I'm just looking for any sponsored job, that isn't what an employer wants to hear. So if you can't convince me as your careers advisor or your specialist in employability, how are you going to be able to convince an employer? So it's really key to understand not just what you want to do, also where is the demand and what is it employers are actually looking for. So we'll touch on some of those areas a little bit more as we go through today's session. Thank you, Manon. So, few areas that I'm going to touch on involve skills, and this is just one of the areas that I will focus on, skills, but it is arguably the most important things that employers look for when it comes to employment in the UK. So again, we talked about education. The education doesn't determine the job role or job offer or even level that you go in at. One of the biggest things that employers look for, particularly in the graduate world, is skills. It's understanding the skills that are required, understanding what skills you actually have, and understanding, most importantly, how you can evidence and demonstrate those skills. So if we talk technical skills, you've got your systems, your processes, your platforms, your Microsoft packages, your Canva, your SAP, your Power BI, Python, all of those kind of things, where depending on the kind of job role that you're going in for in terms of level, that has more weighting behind it in terms of the certifications you might have or the knowledge that or experience that you have with certain platforms. But if you're going in more as a fresher, more as a recent fresh graduate, then not necessarily looking so much at the technical skills, because they can teach you those things, or you will learn those things as you go through your employment journey. What they are not here to teach you is the soft skills. This is what they expect you to already have. But it's not just having it, as we touched on, it's being able to demonstrate that skill set. So the communication, the adaptability, the teamwork, the leadership, the problem solving, all of those kind of skills that employers are looking for, but they are looking for you to already have this skill set, because this is going to take them too much time, too much investment to try to train you within these kind of things. And most of you will have these kind of skills already, because if you're at university, you will have these skills will be embedded into your courses. So you're probably developing or enhancing these skills without even realizing it. If that is the case, one of the things I'd ask you to do is maybe to sit down and analyze what are your top 6 skills and why. And if an employer was to ask you to evidence that skill set, what example could you use to evidence it? And then the UK work culture, I don't think is too dissimilar to most cultures across the world. Being professional and courteous. If I use emails, for example, I get students email me without any kind of salutation. I'm not expecting you to call me sir, but even just the good morning when you send in an email, be surprised how often those kind of things don't happen. I get emails with just the CV attached and no body in the email at all. So you sent me a CV, you haven't told me what it was for, you haven't told me why you've sent it, and my response is quite simply, why have you sent me this? And it's really important because that is a first impression. You never know the people that you are speaking to, regardless of what they do right now, when your paths are going to come across again, and that first impression is a lasting impression. So email is a really big one. And whilst I'm on emails, I'm also going to touch on the use of AI. I'm starting to see more students using AI to write the email for them. I don't really have a problem with that, but you also have to question, does that writing style reflect your writing style? Is it very evident to me when a student has used ChatGPT as an example to send me an email? Yes, generally, because it doesn't sound anything like them. Okay, because when they email me or when they've emailed me previously, it's very, very different. So again, no issue with you using some kind of AI platform, but use it for ideas. Don't use it just as a copy and paste. I have even had a student copy and paste their whole ChatGPT history to me in an email where they are asking ChatGPT to write the email to me. And they've copied and pasted that whole chat history. Again, it looks very unprofessional. Now, some of these things might sound like, you might sit here and think, I would never do that. I get it from all students, from all backgrounds. Okay. So just be mindful, you might sit there today thinking that actually I've done that before or I haven't done that before, but these are the kind of things that are happening. Time management, I think, is very self-explanatory. Be on time. If you're not going to be on time, let somebody know as soon as you know. I've got no issue, for example, with appointments being cancelled when students book appointments with me. Just let me know. Let me know as soon as you know, but don't make it a habit. You can accept it once. I can accept it twice. If it happens a third time, then I start to ask how serious you are about seeking that support, because you wouldn't cancel on the doctors. You wouldn't cancel on the dentist 3 times in a row or just not turn up. Same with your career services. If you're at universities that offer career services, same with employers. If you've got an interview, make sure you're on time. Make sure you've planned your journey beforehand, because there's again, you turn up late, you might be the best candidate in the world, but there are plenty of recruiters and employers out there that will simply not offer you the job because you turned up late. Okay, so really important to remember that. Thank you. So, job searching strategies. One of the things that I'll touch on throughout today's session is where you should be looking. So at this point, I am just going to pop some websites in the chat. Got a few websites for you that I think might be beneficial. So there's a list of websites within the chat that will support you with things like graduate jobs, internships, volunteering opportunities. So some of those sites will teach you a little bit more about what these things actually are. So the difference, for example, between a placement and an internship. We get that a lot in the UK, where students, as international students, assume they're the same thing. In the UK, they're not the same thing. So generally, you'll see a placement, and they are considered opportunities for undergraduates only between years 2 and years 3 of the undergraduate degree. And you would go out on a full 12-month placement, and then you would come and finish your final year of study. Placements are generally not available to postgraduate or master students. What is available to postgraduate or master students are known as internships in the UK. So it's really important that you differentiate, because again, I get a lot of master students when we have opportunities of placements or we've been advertising on behalf of employers, although it clearly says that these are opportunities for second year undergraduates only, I have numerous master students apply for those opportunities as well, because they haven't read what was actually advertised. Okay, so again, that doesn't give off the best first impression. But the websites, as I said, that you can use will show you, talk to you about different industries, the skills that are required, what kind of industries require what skills, and also give you lots of exclusive opportunities where you can go and search for placements, internships, etc. Most of you who are at university will have some kind of career support through your own university. Engage with them sooner rather than later. I get a lot of students come to see me in the final semester of their undergraduate degree in their final year and saying to me, I don't know what I want to do when I finish my studies. Well, my question is, where have you been for the last 2.5 years? Because it's never too late to decide what it is you want to do. But if you've reached that point and you're coming to me in final semester of final year, you've missed out on a lot of opportunities. So it's not that it's too late, it's what you've missed out on by that point. Or there are certain industries where you are expected to have done things in years 1 and 2 of your undergraduate degree in order to be offered that position when you've finished your final year. So if I was to use an example of someone like PwC, they would expect you to have done maybe an insight day with them during year 1. In year 2, they might expect you to have gone on their summer internship. And if you haven't done one or both of those things, generally you will find it a lot more difficult to get a graduate job with them. So again, it's really important that you understand sooner rather than later what you actually want to do. Tailoring your applications is something I'm going to touch on a little bit more when we get to the CV section of today's session. And networking, I will touch on a little bit now and a little bit later on. It's really important that you understand the benefits of networking. Whether that's through LinkedIn, whether that's through social media platforms, whether that's attending networking events, whether that's attending insight days with employers. These kind of things are considered and looked at when it comes to who gets a job. I've seen lots of students simply get offered opportunities just off their ability to network because they've impressed someone at a networking event and they've kept in touch afterwards. And then when that company has ended up employing, they've remembered that relationship that they had with that individual that impressed them at a networking event, and they've reached out to them and they've been able to offer a referral or a recommendation. Those kind of things come up a lot when students say to me, how do I get a referral? Well, a referral, for example, is me risking my reputation to put you forward within the business I work for. I'm not going to do that if I don't know you. So please don't approach individuals for referrals or recommendations without having done any kind of groundwork beforehand. Because if it was me and you come to me and I don't know you, I'm not going to refer you. Because what basis am I referring you on? But referrals do come from your ability to network. Okay, thank you. So stage 1 in the recruitment process mainly is going to be some kind of CV and/or application. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the pitfalls and mistakes that I see quite regularly. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can actually stand out in your own CV. So some of the things that I see students do wrong. They don't tailor their CV. They make zero effort to tailor their CV. And what I mean by that in terms of an example would be a student has used the CV to apply for a part-time job. And in their objective, it states, I'm seeking a part-time job, as it should do. They have used that same CV without making any changes to apply for a full-time graduate position. So you've sent me a CV and in your objective, it says you're looking for part-time work. I've got your CV now for a full-time graduate position. I'm not even reading the rest of your CV because you told me in your objective you were looking for a part-time job. That's not the role that you've applied for. I'm not interested in the rest of your CV. And actually, you could have been the best candidate for that role. You might have been the right applicant. You might have been the best quality applicant. But because you told me you were looking for a part-time job and you didn't bother to read your CV before you sent it, it doesn't go any further. So please read your CVs before you actually send them off as part of any applications. I then see badly formatted CVs. So if your CV has got 3 different fonts within it, 4 different font sizes, the spacing between your sections is different, I'm not reading the CV, because that has showed me a lack of attention to detail. And that shows me what kind of employee you are likely to be. So if you can't be bothered to make the effort in your own CV, I'm not someone that's going to be taking you forward to interview stage. So again, these seem like really basic things, but they are mistakes that students are making, whether that's first year undergrads or whether that's master students. These are the mistakes that are being made time after time. What I am looking for in a CV is, when I read it, I believe that you have made a genuine effort to customize it to the role you're actually applying for. And that will include things like a personalized skills section, a personal profile or a professional summary, that first section in the CV. Tailor it. If they're looking for certain skills or experience within the job role, make sure those things are mentioned or documented within your CV if you have those skills or if you have that experience. The CV is your sales document. Imagine it's a business plan. Your CV is your business plan. If your business plan doesn't stack up to where it should be, you don't get to speak to the investor. And that speaking with the investor is your interview. So you've got to get the CV right, because otherwise you never make it to stage 2. Generally, a UK CV should be no more than 2 pages. There are exceptions. For example, if you are applying for an academic position, generally those CVs tend to be more than 2 pages, because you would include things like publications, research articles, those kind of things. So it would go more than 2 pages. Generally, though, 2 pages max. And then I see students try to cram in these really what they consider professional CVs onto 1 page. There are very few industries that require a 1-page CV. There are some, but generally you will know about that before you apply, based on the research you can or should be doing, or based on what it actually says in the job description. If it doesn't mention anything, generally you get 2 pages. An industry where they want 1 page might be investment banking, but there are templates out there again that you can use if you do the right level of research. Spelling mistakes, shouldn't have to say this, but spelling mistakes again, it just shows me a lack of attention to detail. I saw a couple of questions come up about clearing ATS. So ATS is a little bit of a myth. So there are companies that use those kind of systems or softwares, but it doesn't always guarantee foolproof in terms of whether you make it through to the next stage or not. ATS is ultimately assessing your suitability for the job based on the skills, experience you have within the CV. So passing the ATS or going through the ATS is no different to tailoring your CV to the job role. It's including the right skills and experience based on what they said they are looking for. It's no different if I manually look at your CV. If I'm looking for a certain set of skills or experience, whether I check it or whether an AI type platform checks it in terms of an ATS, it's no different. It's just about you understanding what are they looking for, how do I evidence that, and ensuring those things are within your CV. Okay, thank you. Networking we've touched on a little bit. I'm going to focus a little bit on the hidden job market. So the hidden job market is where opportunities are out there without actually there being an opportunity for you to apply for. And that comes down to your ability to network and build relationships with people in the organizations that you want to work in. Okay, so think about, where do you want to work? What kind of job role do you want to do? And reach out to those individuals on LinkedIn. Build connections with them, follow them for a period of time, comment on their posts, because those are the kind of things where they're going to notice that actually this individual keeps commenting, or they keep liking, or they've reached out to me, and you start to build a relationship with that individual so that when opportunities again are advertised within the organization before they're advertised externally, you get to know about them. Okay. We talked about LinkedIn quite a lot, so I'm not going to focus any more on that. The only other thing I'm just going to remind you is when you're reaching out to people for referrals, you must have some kind of relationship with them already. Okay, whether that's you've initiated a conversation with them before, whether you've met them before. There can't just be a cold referral, because why would they put their reputation at risk to refer you in their business if they don't know you? Okay. So there are a few more questions coming through. I think what I'll do is I'll probably touch on questions at the end, because I did have quite a lot of questions that came through before today's session. And I've picked out a few of those based on what I'm not already going to be covering within the presentation. So I'll cover those, and I'll cover any additional questions in the chat at the end of the session. Okay, thank you very much. Interviews. This is probably my favorite topic area, because it's the area where the experts can give you and provide the most value. Okay, whether that's me at Coventry University, whether that's your career services within your own universities. When you get interviews, seek support, seek advice. I see a lot of students go into interviews without doing any of those things, and they come to me 5 or 6 interviews later. And I'm like, where have you been? Why did you not come and speak to me for your first one? I'm not going to help you, or your career services are not going to help you necessarily for every single interview, because we shouldn't have to do that. We are here to teach you what to do and why, so that you can implement it and take that forward. Yes, I might see you a second time if you're unsuccessful and you had some feedback, so that we can work through that feedback and support you with the development areas. But what we won't do is support you with each and every interview. But in terms of how to ace an interview, it all comes down to the prep and the practice. Okay. As soon as you know you have an interview, that is when your prep should begin. Not the day before, not an hour before, as soon as you know. The kind of things that you can and should be prepping are, what type of questions, or what questions am I going to be asked in the interview? Because the better prepared you can be in terms of awareness, the more you can actually create and prepare and practice your examples, which actually then is evidenced by a certain level of confidence when you actually attend the interview. So again, I'm going to touch on AI again. Use something like ChatGPT to preempt the questions you're going to be asked. Upload the job description. Upload any information you've been given about the interview, and ask it to generate some potential interview questions so that you can start to create and prepare your examples. There is nothing worse than going into an interview, being asked the question that you weren't prepared for, and just making something up on the spot, because it is very clear when someone is doing that versus someone who's really well prepared and has almost expected the question that I'm asking them. Okay. Questions you should always be prepared for. Why did you apply for that particular role? Why are you interested in working for that particular company? What are your biggest strengths? What are your biggest weaknesses? Tell me a little bit about yourself. These are questions you should always be prepared for. But then they're your introductory questions. Then you will move into the main body of your interview. In the UK, the most common type of interview is competency-based. And you will know when you are being asked a competency question from the way the question begins. So if I was to say to you, can you give me an example when? Or can you tell me about a time when? As soon as I begin the question that way, you should know I'm now being asked the competency question. And therefore, you are expected to give your example in a specific structure. There are 2 methods you could use. You've got STAR, which is probably the most common interview style, and that's situation, task, action, and result. The other one that you could use is CAHO, which is context, action, result, learning. I would recommend a combination of the two, and I would go with STAR. So you'd finish off once you've given me the result, you would tell me the learning. Any competency question you are asked is expected to follow that kind of structure, okay? What I'm actually going to now do at this point is put in the chat one of my own examples that I've used in an interview, so you can see the level of detail that you are expected to give in every single example, okay? Think of when you're creating and when you're preparing your examples, think about this. The example that you have created for that particular question, if that was the only question I asked you for your interview, would your example be strong enough to pass the interview based on that one example? If it's not, and you sit there and think, actually, this isn't particularly strong, or there isn't a lot of detail here, then you need to improve that. Because if each question is the only interview question you're being asked, I'm judging you 1 to 10 based on that question and that question only. Are you scoring at least a 9 out of 10? If you're not going to pass the interview. Other things that you can do as part of your prep is read that job description in full. They tell you what they're looking for. If they tell you what they're looking for, that's a good basis around those questions when it comes to the interview. Because if I told you what I was looking for in the interview, I'm going to be looking for you to be able to evidence and demonstrate those things. Okay? Thank you. Work visas and immigration rules. I'm going to give a very brief overview on this because I don't profess to be an expert in the different types of visas. That's a whole separate area within not just my universities, but all of your own universities. The visa team is a completely separate team. But I will give you a little bit on expectations. So we've got your graduate visa. For those of you, when you finished your studies, you are automatically eligible for your 2-year graduate visa. That enables you to work within the UK without restriction for a period of 2 years. The challenge that you have on that visa is not the length, but it's employers' understanding and awareness of that particular visa. And the challenge that you will always face from an employer is what happens after the 2 years. Because they don't want to invest all this time and money in someone only to lose them after 2 years. But this is the way that you must be able to overcome that objection or that challenge in your interview. Because actually, when you think about it, there's no guarantee that a home student or a UK national is going to stay in with a company for more than 2 years, no more opportunity or no more chance versus an international student. So if I'm born and raised in the UK, there's no guarantee that I'm going to stay in your company for 2 years. Just like there's no guarantee that you can extend a student's sponsorship or visa for 2 years. So, but you've got to be able to have that conversation with an employer. It's showing an awareness. And again, it's being able to sell the visa as, see it as a 2-year probationary period. If you like my work and you're impressed with my work ethic, you have the ability to sponsor me after 2 years. It's going to cost you approximately this amount. It's going to take approximately this long. And that's the way that you sell it to the employer, showing them I'm aware of what the visa process is. The benefits of taking me on as a candidate is because my opportunities and options are going to be more limited versus a home student, that I'm more likely to show you that loyalty. Because actually you offered me an opportunity when nobody else did. I will then work extra hard for you, that at the end of the 2 years, if you choose to get rid of me, fine. But I can almost guarantee you that I will work so hard and I will do such a good job that you will want to sponsor me. Now, it takes a certain level of confidence to be able to have that conversation, but it's more about the awareness piece. Okay, you have to understand your own restrictions and why would an employer sponsor you versus a candidate that doesn't need sponsorship. I see a lot on social media from the international market, not just from the Indian market, but from the international market in general, about there almost being a little bit of I deserve or we deserve in terms of opportunities, in terms of sponsorship. I put this back to say, actually, when you arrived in the UK, it was on a student visa, which granted you your education. There was never any guarantee that anybody was going to give you a job in terms of sponsorship after that period of time. It's no different if I went to India tomorrow. I speak Hindi, I speak Gujarati to an extent. But if I was to go to India tomorrow, with the experience that I have and the skill set I have, and I was to go up against an Indian national, the chances are they're probably going to give the opportunity to the Indian national. They're not going to sponsor me. So it's the same principle in the UK. Only the best of the best will receive sponsorship. And again, that's where you have to understand what industries are actually in demand. Okay? Because if you're going into an industry or wanting to work in an industry where there isn't really a demand because there is already a UK workforce, that's not the right probably areas you should be targeting when it comes to sponsorship. Okay, thank you. And then around gaining the experience whilst you're at university so that when you come towards the end of your studies, you are best placed to secure that more professional role. So as we touched on right at the beginning, the education doesn't play a huge amount in an employer's decision to take you on as an employee. What does is the experience, the skill set, and the motivation and understanding of the industry. So how can you increase your awareness in those things? So you could look at doing summer internships, 2-week internships, insight days with employers. If you're an undergrad student and you've not reached the end of your second year yet, consider a placement, because those students who go out on placement are much more likely to be offered an opportunity at the end of their studies. But for some of you or most of you are probably master's students. That market is incredibly difficult and incredibly competitive when it comes to internships. So you have to really be able to showcase how and why you deserve that opportunity. And the kind of things you should be doing there is really understanding, why am I interested in that company? Why am I interested in that opportunity? How is that going to benefit me in my future career? Because you have to be able to explain these things to employers. Part-time jobs. Okay, I get asked the question a lot about, should my part-time job be relevant to my studies or be relevant to the industry I want to work in? In an ideal world, yes, but we don't live in an ideal world. Those opportunities, for example, a part-time accounting position, they are generally not going to take on students with limited or no experience for those opportunities. Because if they only have you, for example, 15, 16, 20 hours a week, they have very limited time to train you and support you. So they're going to want someone with experience. So your part-time jobs should be any part-time job, because it shows, number one, you have some UK work experience. Number two, you develop a skill set in any industry, in any job, that is known as transferable skills that you can replicate in any industry. I talked about my background. My background was banking and finance. I don't even have an undergraduate degree, so how am I working in higher education supporting students? Because I developed a skill set within my banking experience that I could quite easily transfer into higher education. And I'll explain that a little bit more, because you might not necessarily see the direct correlation. So when I worked in the bank, I dealt with customers. I work in higher education. I've got customers. They're called students. When I worked in banking, I had a lot of objectives. I work in higher education supporting students into employment. I have a lot of objectives. I've always been able to meet my objectives, regardless of the industry I've worked in. I'm able to communicate effectively with any kind of individual. So actually, when I worked in banking, all of these skills that I developed were easily transferable to another industry. But it's being able to recognize and understand that skill set. Okay, thank you. Professional growth and career progression. This is really just about staying up to date with what is actually required for the industry or the role that you want to work in. If there are any undergraduate students on today's call, before you decide to go and do a master's degree, understand, why am I doing that master's degree? Does it make me any more employable? For the roles that I'm applying for, do I need a master's degree? Is the master's degree the right degree? If you've done something like international business at undergrad, there's probably not yet any benefit in doing international business at postgrad, because there's not going to be enough differential to warrant doing that course, and the skill set you're probably going to develop isn't going to be any different. So always consider, before you choose to do any kind of additional qualification or course, what is the actual benefit? Okay, perfect, thank you. That kind of brings me to the end of my session. I think the key takeaways from me are, number one, be proactive. Take those steps sooner rather than later, because otherwise you start to miss out on opportunities. Network. Build relationships with the people that are going to be able to benefit you in your future career. That's going to be the people who are already working in those companies, who are already working in those job roles, hiring managers, career services. Network with anyone and everyone, because you never know when your paths are going to cross again, and you never know when an opportunity is going to come up. Always work to look to improve, whether that's your CV, whether that's your LinkedIn profile. You should always be looking to develop everything that you're doing. You should always be looking to improve, and you should always be looking to learn. And you should always be finding ways to improve your communication, okay? Which is something I'm going to touch on in one of the questions that was asked. Resources. So I've put some links in the chat already. I've put a copy of an example that I think you could mirror when you're looking at interviews. I've also got a CV template, which I'm also going to add into the chat as well, which I think will be beneficial. And then it's just about understanding, because the resources one is very difficult for me to answer, because it depends on the industry you want to work in. All it takes is a research. Okay, you guys can research as part of your studies, but that same level of effort and same level of research generally then isn't put into the research when it comes to careers and jobs. Treat it no different. Treat it like an assignment. Okay, so there should be an example CV in the chat now as well. And in terms of reaching out for career advice, so if for any of you who are at Coventry University, you've got access to the talent team. Other universities, you will all have some kind of career service. Make the most of it. That's what they are paid to do. You already pay for this within your tuition fees. So make the most of it. Okay. Thank you. I think that's the end of the presentation from my side. I have got some questions that I think are also in the chat, but I'm going to go through some questions that I was sent through initially first. And these are questions that were sent through ahead of the session. Okay. So one of the questions that was sent through was...
Yes, sorry, Mr. Ahmed. We'll get back to the questions in a minute.
Okay, no problem.
That's okay. Yeah. So yes, students, remember your career is a journey. In the UK is a marathon, not a sprint. With the right strategy, success is within the reach. Now that you've heard all of it from Amit, you know the preparation is key. Manore, next slide, please. Yes. So now that you have heard all of it from Amit, you know that preparation is key. A well-prepared candidate stands out from the rest. Know your industry, stay updated on market trends, required skills, and hiring patterns. Tailor your CV and cover letter. One size fits all doesn't work. Customize it for each role. Ace your interviews. Research common interview questions, practice your responses, and be confident. Understand visa requirements. Ensure you're aware of all the legal aspects related to work opportunities. The more prepared you are, the better your chances of securing your dream job. Now we open the floor to your questions. If you have any doubts or need further insights, drop your questions in the chat and we'll address them. This is your chance to gain clarity, guidance, and expert advice. Let's get started. So the first question now, it is, just a minute.
I think Amit can take it himself, I guess. I think he can read it just to make things easier.
Yeah, that's fine by me if you want to do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I think we covered that first one around ATS. So the next one I've got is guidance for a career in data science. So currently pursuing first semester in data science and computational intelligence with 1 year's worth of work experience. So I'm not going to go into specific career advice on today's call because that isn't my knowledge area. But what I'm going to do is, it looks like, Shreyash, you're at Coventry University, which is ideal. So I'm going to refer you to book an appointment with the talent team. And the first thing that I'd say is the first type of appointment you want should be career planning if you're not entirely sure what it is you want to do after your studies. If you do know, you can skip that stage and the appointment you will book will be for a CV, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile check. And they'll go through those things with you, because the worst thing that you can end up doing is going and applying for stuff with the incorrect level of document. So I'm not going to go into specific career advice. I am going to refer you to the talent team at the university, and the experts within that particular college will be able to support you on a one-to-one basis. Shreyash, I'll also refer you to the Phoenix Plus platform, which you can sign up to and is accessible to all students at Coventry University. And that is the platform where you can sign up for our workshops. So whether that's on CVs, interviews, confidence, networking, there's a wide range of group sessions that we deliver. And those sessions are available and accessible to all students at the university. Thank you. Next question we've got is how to cover experience in 2 pages and how to tailor the CV. So I think I touched on tailoring the CV already, so I'll cover the 2 pages part. Some of you will sit here today with a lot of experience and you'll sit and think, how do I get all of that on 2 pages? That's all about tailoring. So if you've done, for example, 2 jobs that were the same, I'm going to use basic part-time type jobs as an example. So if you've worked as a warehouse operative in 2 different warehouses and it was both for 6-12 months, do you need both of those experiences on there? Probably not, because it was the same thing, the same industry, so therefore you only need to include one of them. So that would be the first bit of advice. If it's a duplicate of roles, and particularly where those roles are not really relevant, only include them once. Then if you've done, for example, something 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is that now relevant? So think about how long ago that experience was. So it should only be the most recent and the most relevant on your CV. And as we said, making sure that it doesn't ideally exceed the 2 pages. The tailoring piece is just about the key words, the key experiences, the things they are looking for in a candidate that is already in the job description. So they tell you what they're looking for. Make sure those things, especially where you actually have the experience, is evidence within your CV. Can ATS read CVs with excessive graphs and tables? That's a very interesting question, and I'm going to say the answer is no. From my experience, no. Within your CV, there is no reason for there to be any graphs, tables, anything where on a grading system, I see languages being graded, I see skills being graded. There shouldn't be any tables, graphs, or anything like that on a CV. And the chances are, if it goes through ATS, it's not going to be able to recognize that. And even if it doesn't go through an ATS platform, employers don't want to see that in a CV that they're reviewing manually anyway. Okay, so no graphs, tables, or anything like that. How to prepare for interviews when employers asks at very short notice. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll notice that I posted about this exact topic last week, because it's coming up more and more. Students are being asked to attend interviews last minute, not giving them a lot of time to prepare. But the preparation should have already begun. Okay, so when you're creating these examples that we talked about around the skills, so problem solving, communication, etc., you should already have these examples. You shouldn't need to create them just because you've got an interview coming up. You should already have a bank of examples that you can call on, that as soon as that interview comes in, you're already sitting there thinking, I've already got some examples I'm planning to use. Okay, so it shouldn't be brand new prep every single time. The only things that should be new are the why the company, why the role, because your strengths don't change, your weaknesses don't change, your examples around competency questions shouldn't change drastically. So yes, I understand it's not easy to prepare for an interview last minute, but your preparation should already have been undertaken and already be underway from a previous interview, or just on the basis that you know that you're going to get an interview sooner or later. So again, at the uni, we host workshops around these areas. I'm sure all of your own universities do workshops, they do seminars around these specific areas. Attend them. Attend them before you actually get an interview, so you know what to expect. Okay, next question that we've got is how to tackle job role rejection due to limited days remaining on PSW. That's a very, very difficult one to deal with, because it is going to come to a point where you just don't have enough time left on your PSW. Okay, so that's just a matter of fact. Employers, if you've got less than 6 months, if I was an employer, would I take you on? Probably not, because by the time I've trained you and you've got up to speed with everything, I'm going to be losing you. So there has to be a little bit of a reality check to say, actually, it is now reached a point where I have very little time left on the PSW. I'm just going to have to accept that and go back to the home country. But it's about what you do before it gets to that stage. Okay, so the PSW, or the graduate visa as it's now called, it was designed for 2 years. It was for you to get your experience as an international student, and for most of you to go back to the home country, and for the best of the best to stay and be offered sponsorship. So it's about awareness. Actually, there was never a guarantee, number one. Number two, it's about how you sell that 2-year visa, as I touched on earlier on. And it's about being aware of the different types of visas that you can get on and what it means for an employer. Okay, so the question really for me, I haven't really answered it very well, but it's about being aware of before that stage, because when it kind of gets to that stage, your options are already very limited. The next question again was around visas, and just happened to be 10 months remaining as well, so we've kind of touched on that. The next one was, despite tailoring CVs and cover letters to perfection, spending days on applications, often rejected by AI systems within hours. Current job market is not competitive. I agree with that. It feels rigged. AI-driven hiring filters out candidates. Okay, so we're talking really about the struggle from application to progression. Okay. So that will come down to, if you are tailoring your applications, which it looks like you are based on that comment there, it will be a case of a variety of different things. So it could be things like that job was never actually a live vacancy. Sometimes vacancies are advertised because they have to be, okay? Legally, they have to be advertised. But actually, the organization already knew who they wanted. So that in that instance, there's nothing you can do. You could have put together the best quality application in the world. You could be the best candidate in the world, but the job was already going to someone else. Then it's about your networking. So we touched on that before. When you look at a job advert, at the bottom of a job advert, generally there is the name or a contact of a hiring manager or someone you can reach out to. Every student I speak to about whether they've done that says no. So that's where you've missed the trick. Because if there is an opportunity to reach out to the hiring manager before your application, you should be making the most of that opportunity. And you reach out to them via their email address or via their LinkedIn. And the aim of that interaction is to build a connection with that individual before they receive your application. So imagine it's me. You reach out to me on LinkedIn. Amit, you're hiring for this particular role. I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask. Can you spare me 5 minutes for a Teams call? You then get me on a Teams call because I'm the hiring manager. Why would I say no? You get me on a Teams call. You have a good conversation with me for 5 or 10 minutes with some insightful questions. You build a bit of rapport with me. The very next day, your application is in my inbox. I'm going to remember the conversation that we had the day before and the proactive step that you took that nobody else took to call me. That shows me what kind of employee you're going to be. You are proactive. You showed confidence. You did something that nobody else did. You were able to engage me in a conversation. So even when I review your CV or your application, you might not tick all of the boxes. I'll probably still give you an opportunity to interview to see if you can impress me just as much in the interview as you did in that pre-interaction. Okay, so it's about doing those proactive things even before you consider submitting your application. Okay, next one is navigate the job market when an individual's got a couple of years experience in the current market. Most jobs in the software sector have some sort of written test and a competency-based rounds. Okay, so this again looks like interviews, assessments, etc. So I am going to touch on online assessments because that's kind of come up here and in some of the questions I was asked beforehand. The key to online assessments is the research and the practice that you do. It's not just the case of turning up, starting the assessment for 20 minutes online and hoping for the best. Okay, there's prep involved. Because the questions for some of your competency-based questions are based on that company's goals, ethics, morals, vision. So you need to have done your research to know what are their values, because that will help you with your questions. You've got to make sure you're consistent with your questions and your answers, because question 1 and question 8 might sound very similar, and they're looking for the same response. So be consistent with your answers. If you give me a completely different answer the second time round, it's going to show me that you were just guessing. And practice. There are all sorts of websites you can go and use to practice these online assessments before you do an official assessment. It's like saying in your studies, your academic says to you, I'd like you to do this particular assignment. And before you submit the assignment, you can send it to me and I'll give you feedback. And you don't do that and you go and submit the assignment. Why would you not take advantage of the steps, the support, the tools that are available to you before you go and do something official? So do your practice, okay? Is it necessary to include part-time experience for field-specific full-time roles in the CV? That's a very difficult question to answer because it depends. It depends on the role that you're applying for, what level of experience you have, because as an example, I touched on, employers want to see that you've got some UK experience. So again, that's predominantly going to come from your part-time work. And therefore, I would expect to see it on the CV. But if you've worked in Sainsbury's and you've worked in Tesco and you've worked in Asda, I don't need to see all 3 of those on the CV because they were probably very similar in terms of role and responsibility and the skill set that you developed. So it all depends. Yes, show me some part-time work. Don't show me it all, particularly if it was a long time ago, particularly if it's all the same kind of part-time work. Okay, I think, unless I've missed anything, that's all of the questions in the chat. I'm just going to go through those questions that I'd put down to see if there's anything different for me to cover on here.
Right. If any of you, the students, if you want to ask any questions directly to Amit, you can raise your hand and we will unmute you.
I think the only other question I'm going to answer that came through on the questions that we've touched on a little bit, but I think it's an interesting one. It's relevant for everyone. Why is it so difficult to get sponsored jobs in the UK at present? I think we've touched on that a little bit already. Number one, if you look around at your university, and I can only really speak for Coventry, but I'm sure it's at most of the universities, the university population now, higher education in the UK, is probably close to a 50-50 split when it comes to UK or home student versus international student. So 50% of the students, international. So you think about then the number of opportunities that are out there. The numbers don't go. Then you narrow it down to companies that can offer sponsorship. The number ratio goes even lower. You look at the students that require sponsorship that are actually qualified for the role. The ratio goes even lower. So the challenge is not that you're not good enough, it's that you are competing against so many other candidates in the same position as you, requiring sponsorship, but have got a different or enhanced level of experience. So you might sit there thinking it's a sponsorship issue. It's not. It's a UK higher education issue where there are shortages in the workforce or industries or areas, but the international market is not necessarily covering those shortfalls. So the challenge will always remain. Again, it's not because you're not good enough. It's just the ratios of international students in the UK currently seeking employment. Okay. So I think that answers that question. So yeah, any other questions, I'm happy to take those either in the chat or if anyone wants to message me.
Right. I think there's one more question from Karthik. How beneficial is it to get a mentor? And should I be focusing on finding one?
That's an interesting one. So within our, I can speak for my university. We tried this a while ago. We tried to set students up with industry mentors. The challenge was there was a lack of willing industry mentors. So because you will get a lot of people who will offer you their time and support, but there are a lot of people that are not willing to do that, particularly if there's no direct benefit to them. A lot of individuals that you would want to reach out to for support, mentorship, advice are probably already being reached out to by numerous other individuals. So you are likely to face rejection in either the sense of someone doesn't respond, someone tells you no, someone tells you they can't. So to find a mentor is very difficult. The way that you should, or if you are focused on a mentor, which I would encourage you to do, is more via the networking element. So attend those networking events, build a connection with someone, build a relationship with someone where they want to stay in contact with you and they want to support you and see you progress in your career. Because just reaching out randomly to a mentor or someone you want to be a mentor probably isn't going to work. You're probably going to be faced with rejection and you're probably then going to get a little bit demotivated. So yes, you do want to try and get a mentor, but you need to find a way to network with that individual first. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Amit. Now I request Mr. Manu Gowda to share a few words about our key speaker, Amit Ganatra.
Sorry, I was speaking on my own for a long time then. Okay, so thank you, Amit. It is very great, insightful. Even though I've got quite a few years of industry experience, I thought I have now learned few more tricks and the ways that I could approach my future jobs in my future jobs. So thank you. Just to say a few words about Amit, when we reached Amit to put this to be our career counselor for this session, he kindly accepted it. And then he was quite amused to know about our different organizations working for the community benefits. And then we presented what we do, what we did in the past, and why we do these things. And now we've extended this to the students community as well. And then he said yes. So I don't know how many people would say just yes if you just randomly approach someone to be a career counselor for something like this kind of sessions. So I'm really thank you. I'm really thankful to Amit. And also, we might do similar sessions in the future with Amit, probably with some other people. So I'm sure this is going to benefit a lot of our students. I mean, we especially did this for Kannada students just to keep this small to begin with, so that our known people can be benefited, and then eventually we could expand it with other students as well. Of course, we have INSA, Indian Student Association. We will continue to work with them to make this bigger and to help more students going forward. So yeah, thanks again, once again, thanks to Amit. I'll leave it at there, and then Akshata will take over for further discussions.
All right. Thank you, Manore. So before we hop on to the next segment, here are some key takeaways to keep in mind. Stay proactive. Don't wait for opportunities. Go out and find them. Build your network, connect with professionals, join communities, and attend events. Upskill continuously. Keep learning through courses, certifications, and hands-on experience. Be resilient. Job hunting can take time, but persistence always pays off. So, yeah, Manore, next slide, please. Yeah. So before we wrap up, we have an exciting segment coming up. We'll now hear from students who have recently graduated and successfully landed jobs in the UK. They've been through the challenges, the uncertainties, and the job hunting process, just like many of you. What worked for them? What challenges did they face? What tips do they have for you? Let's hear it from them. Now, let's welcome our first speaker, Vishwas, who will be sharing his journey with us. Over to you, Vishwas.
Thank you, Akshita, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Vishwas. So, hope this new year brings new positive changes to our lives. A bit background about me. In India, I was doing my CA. So, I'm a part qualified chartered accountant. I worked in audit for 3 years. Then I was more focused towards analytics part of it in finance, not towards the banking or private equity, but more towards the FP&A. So I wanted to blend sort of finance and analytics together. So that's why I decided to do my business analytics at Oxford Brooks. So I ಬಂದಿದ್ದು Jan 23 and I completed my course in Jan 24. So currently I'm working in the treasury team of a company called Okkooṭa Limited. So previously, what challenges I've faced is nothing different than what the current students are facing, like getting rejected or not able to find time to apply for jobs and also manage part-time studies, part-time jobs, university, everything together. But it all comes down to your willingness to put effort into it. That's it. So you have to start applying for jobs since, I mean, from the time you land here. I mean, if you're not able to apply, you have to start preparing for it. Because most of the times what I see is non-friends it's usually generally when you're a student, you're more focused on managing your expenses. So you tend to focus more on spending time in part-time jobs to earn more money and neglecting your career. Or even after once you get PSW, I understand that we all have finances to manage, but even if you get try to get just uh, a part-time role where you can just fulfill your manage your expenses and spend more time on tailoring your CV or applying for jobs, upskilling yourself in the industry uh, regarding the required skills. So some practical aspects, like Amit had already shared, the most important thing is knowing what you want in the industry. Like applying to every other job is not gonna land you an interview. So what I did was I knew I want to work in FP&A, but also since I started applying there, I knew people are hiring more on the experience side rather than entry level roles. So I just want to gain an entry into the UK accounting industry. So I did multiple CVs where one CV was focused on getting a role in UK accounting practice. Other was more focused on financial analyst role. So ನಂದು ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷನಲ್ ಸಮ್ಮರಿನ ನಾನು ಎವ್ರಿ ಜಾಬ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೆ. That's what helped me to land both of these jobs. Previously, I was working in practice. I got my first job in June 24 in a small accounting practice itself in Didcot. So in that professional summary, I had clearly highlighted my previous experience of working in a practice, accounting, tax, and audit. And I ended my summary by saying I want to work in UK practice industry, I mean UK accounting practice. So that the whole interview was based on my practice experience. But ultimately, I knew I wanted to move into industry. So after 4-5 months, I started applying for jobs again. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಾನು ಆ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷನಲ್ ಸಮ್ಮರಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. In that I told I want to on the last line I clearly highlighted that I have so many years of experience in practice. Now I'm looking to transition into industry. So this question again came up in my interview, that why do I want to transition to industry from practice? So I explained I'm looking. I have these skills. I've worked in practice. I know the fundamentals of finance and accounting, and I've also technical skills in Power BI or SQL. So I want to integrate both and work in more of a strategic role. So I told them clearly that I want to progress towards FP&A. So although I'm working currently in treasury, in my interview, both my hiring managers told me that there will be chance for progression towards it. So this is how you have to clearly always tailor your CV for every job you apply. There is no other way to, no other shortcut for landing an interview other than tailoring your CV. Because, like I said, you have to focus more on career and scaling your skill set rather than just focusing more on making money through part-time jobs. Because ನಾನು ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಕೂಡ PSW ಬಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ I only took a part-time job where I used to go for just 3 days and rest 3 days whole day ನಾನು ಜಾಬ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೆ. ಎವ್ರಿ ಜಾಬ್ಗೆ ನಾನು CV ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೆ. So my friends used to ask, ಎಷ್ಟು ಜಾಬ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯ, ಆಚೆ ಬಾ, ವಿಲ್ ಗೋ ಔಟ್ ಹಾಗೆ ಅಂತ. But yeah, I understand that is also required, but that effort needs to come from your end. Like the saying goes, luck favors the brave. So you have to be brave enough to keep applying to the jobs even if you get rejected. So a couple of other things on sponsorship. I think the best opportunity for now to get sponsorship is to target the graduate roles, because everybody knows the threshold has increased and it has become extremely difficult to land a sponsored job. But for the graduate roles, you have to start applying nearly like 9 or 8 months before the road closes. Because the deadlines, they usually start in September, but ನಾನು ನೋಡ್ತಿರೋ ಹಂಗೆ ಡೆಡ್ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಜೂನ್ ಜುಲೈ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಕ್ಯಾಂಡಿಡೇಟ್ಸ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ. ನನಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಹಾಗೆ ಆಗಿತ್ತು ಒಂದಕ್ಕೆ. ಐ ವಾಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಲೇಟ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈಂಗ್ ವಿತ್ ಜಾಬ್ because ನನಗೆ I didn't even knew there was an opening in Capital One. That was a very good graduate entry scheme for the strategy analyst. So if someone's looking in that field, financial services, Capital One or Aviva, those kind of companies are offering very good graduate roles, but you have to be very proactive. And Regarding that technical ability questions, SHL is the platform I recommend where you have to practice yourself, because most of the roles I had applied for, I got the test from SHL itself. My first role, I got an interview for the FPNA, but I couldn't crack the SHL test, because that was the first time in my life I ever saw that test. So you have to constantly, focus on practicing those tests and tailoring your CV and cover letter so that you at least first go to an interview stage or get a call from HR. Again, just everything, just keeping your fundamentals strong, like Amit already said, you have to be very clear on what role you want. So that's how your focus or all your efforts can be channeled towards. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಮೈ ಪರ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ದಂಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ FPN ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇದ್ರೆ you already should know what are your strengths or what questions they're going to ask, so that you can use your examples from your previous work. Most of the time, I know from 20% matra technical questions irutte. 70% or 80% is more based on the competency based, what are you going to do in this situation, or how have you handled this situation before. Athara questions irutte. So yeah, this is my experience so far, and thank you for all the organizers for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vishwas, for sharing your journey with us. It's truly inspiring to hear firsthand how you navigated the challenges and successfully secured a job in the UK. Your insights will definitely help many in our audiences today. Now, let's welcome our next speaker, Harshita, who will share her own experiences and tips. Over to you, Harshita.
Thank you so much, Akshata. Hi all, ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಹರ್ಷಿತಾ. So ನಾನು previously India I've done my engineering, bachelor's in engineering, and also I've done my MBA from India. So this is my second master's. So I've done my master's from University of Liverpool. ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಂಗೆ ನನಗೂ ಜಾಬ್ ಹಂಟಿಂಗ್ ತುಂಬಾನೇ ಎಕ್ಸಾಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ತುಂಬಾ ಡಿಮೋಟಿವೇಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಅಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ಹಾಕ್ಲೇಬೇಕು. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ದೋ ವಿ ಗೆಟ್ ರಿಜೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್, ನಾವೇನ್ ಅನ್ಕೋತೀವಿ, ಯಾಕೆ ನಾವು ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲಾನು ಇದೆ ರೆಸ್ಯೂಮೆಲಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಬಟ್ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ವಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಸೋ ಮೆನಿ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್. ಬಟ್ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಜಿ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿದ್ ಏನಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿತ್ತು ಜಾನ್ ಇಂದ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಹೈರಿಂಗ್ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಜಾನ್ ಇಂದ ಆಬ್ವಿಯಸ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ನ್ಯೂ ಇಯರ್, ಅಂಡ್ ಜಾನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಓಪನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಜಾನ್ ಇಂದ ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ನವೆಂಬರ್ ಡಿಸೆಂಬರ್ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಕ್ರಿಸ್ಮಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಹಾಲಿಡೇ ಸೀಸನ್, ಸೊ ಹೈರಿಂಗ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಜಿನ ನಾನು ತಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು, ಸೊ ಜಾನ್ ಇಂದ ನಾನು ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಐ ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಮೈ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಗೆಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತು, ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ವೈವ್ ಆಗಕ್ಕೆ ವಿ ಟೆನ್ ಟು ಡೂ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್. ಬಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ಐ ಟೆಲ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಒನ್ ಇಸ್, ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಬಟ್ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ದ ಡೇಸ್ ವೇರ್ ನಾವು ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಯಾರಿಟಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನಾನು ಏನ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಜಿ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಮಂಡೇ ಟು ಫ್ರೈಡೇ ಐ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಸಿಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಫಾರ್ ಜಾಬ್ಸ್, and Saturday and Sunday I used to do part-time. So solid 5 days of weekday I used to apply for jobs. So belige 9 to 4 tanka itkonta ide applying for jobs timings na. So obviously continuous ಆಗಿ apply ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. So I used to take breaks, and also ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆ ಐ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಗೋ ಥ್ರೂ ದಿ ಕಂಪನಿ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಂಪನಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ನಾನು ಏನು ನೋಟಿಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಜಾನಿಂದ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಐ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಗೆಟ್ ಕಾಲ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಜಾನಿಂದನೇ ನನಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕಾಲ್ಸ್ ಬರೋಕ್ಕೂ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಸೊ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಐ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಕಾಲ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ HR, ಸೊ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಇನಿಷಿಯಲಿ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಕಂಪನಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಅಬೌಟ್ the questions what they ask for that particular role. So idella information namge Glassdoor allu ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, because previous candidates so our companyly interview ಆಗಿರೋರು, they would have put up few questions, they would have put up the interview experience. So ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಯ್ತು. ನಾನು ಯಾವಾಗ ನನಗೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇನಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಕಾಲ್ಸ್ ಬರಕ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು. ಸೊ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡೋವಾಗ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಜಾಬು. ಬಟ್ ಯಾ ಒಂದ್ ಏನಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗಿವ್ ಅಪ್, ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಲೂಸ್ ಹೋಪ್. ಎಲ್ರೂ ಅದೇ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ ಈ ತರ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಜೀಸ್ಗಳು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅಮಿತ್ ಇವತ್ತು ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಲೈಕ್ ರೆಸ್ಯೂಮೆ ನಾವು ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದು ಜಾಬ್ಗೂ ಎಡಿಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಕವರ್ ಲೆಟರ್. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನು ನಾನೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದು ಜಾಬ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡೋವಾಗೂ ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ರೆಸ್ಯೂಮೆನ ಎಡಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೆ. ಮುಂಚೆ ನನಗೆ ಈ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಜಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಐ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಫಾರ್ ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ರೆಸ್ಯೂಮೆ. ಸೊ ಅವಾಗ ನಂಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಕಾಲ್ ಬರ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಐ ವಾಸ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಫಿಗರ್ ಔಟ್, ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ದ ವೇ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್. ಸೊ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಐ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಎಡಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಮೈ ರೆಸ್ಯೂಮೆ, ಚೇಂಜಿಂಗ್ ಮೈ ಕವರ್ ಲೆಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಸ್ ಪರ್ ದ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಕಾಲ್ಸ್ ಬರಕ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು. ಸೊ ಒಂದ್ಸತಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಅದು ಗೊತ್ತಾದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ ತರ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಕಾಲ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಶೋರ್ ಯಾವ ಟೈಮ್ ಹೈರಿಂಗ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದೀಸ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದಿಸ್ ಹೈರಿಂಗ್ ಟೈಮು ಮತ್ತೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೈರಿಂಗ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರೋ ಟೈಮು ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ what I would feel is everyone will get calls, everyone will get interview opportunities, and I think we can crack the interviews and get into UK market. So and also about the skill set, I think Amit already cover ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ್ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ ಸೆಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ನಾವು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದು ನಾವು ಏನ್ ರೆಸ್ಯೂಮೇಲ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಿವೋ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಬಂದೇ ಬರೋ ಸಾಧ್ಯತೆಗಳಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನಾವು ಹುಷಾರಾಗಿ ಏನ್ ಹಾಕ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ರೆಸ್ಯೂಮೇಲಿ ಹುಷಾರಾಗಿ ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಗೈಸ್ ನೀಡ್ ಎನಿ ಮೋರ್ ಏನಂತಾರೆ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಬೇಕಂತ ಇದ್ರೆ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರೀಚ್ ಮೀ ಥ್ರೂ ಲಿಂಕ್ಡ್ಇನ್. ನನಗೇನ್ ಗೊತ್ತು, ನನ್ನ ಜರ್ನಿಲಿ ಹೆಂಗಿತ್ತು, ಯಾವ ತರ ಆಯ್ತು, ಸೊ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಶೇರ್ ಮೈ tips. I think that's it, Akshata. I wish all the best for everyone, and it's a very nice platform. At least ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ನಮ್ಮ ಕನ್ನಡಿಗರು ಈ ತರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಸೇರಿ we are supporting each other. It's actually very good. I thank everyone for giving me this opportunity. I thank Manu as well, and thank you so much everyone. ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಯುಗಾದಿ ಹಬ್ಬದ ಶುಭಾಶಯಗಳು.
A big thank you to Harshita for sharing such valuable experiences and practical advice. It's always great to hear real success stories, and I'm sure our audiences has gained some key takeaways from our journey. So we truly appreciate both our speakers today for taking the time to help fellow students and graduates. Let's continue learning from each other and growing together as a community. As we close this webinar, a special thank you to our career counselor, Amit Ganatra, for his continuous support and guidance in helping us navigate our career journeys. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our speakers for sharing their experiences, our organizers and partner communities for making this event possible, and most importantly, all of you for joining, engaging, and making this a success. Let's continue supporting each other and growing as a community. We know there were many great questions in the chat, and while we couldn't answer all of them due to time constraint, don't worry, we will be sending out an email with responses to all the unanswered questions soon. So keep an eye out for that. Stay connected with Coventry Kannadigaru, MKUK, KAHO, and INSA. Follow our pages and groups for updates on future events. Wishing you all the best in your career journey. Thank you. Ellarigu ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. Have a great evening.